Something, isn't it? How quick this town died.
Didn't die, I got murdered.
Hey guys, Greg and Ryan back, breaking down another episode of True Detective Season 3. We're already on episode 6.
Yes, we are. Hunters in the Dark. Now again, spoiler warning, if you haven't watched this episode just yet, go watch it and come on back.
Also, make sure you're subscribed to the channel because we have breakdowns for every single episode, and maybe when the season's over, we'll go back and do some more True Detective stuff.
Yeah, maybe. Maybe.
We're not going to do Season 2, though.
Why not?
Because it never happened, Greg.
It's not a bad season.
Sometimes a thing happens. Split your life. There's a before and after. I got like 5 of them at this point. And this is your first.
Okay, let's get started. Hunters in the Dark. What does that title refer to, Ryan?
Well, Hunters in the Dark, there has been a film, I believe, Hunter in the Dark, back in the 70s, and then a novel, Hunters in the Dark. But I think specifically when you're talking about True Detective, there are multiple hunters, especially in this episode, that we can refer to. Different characters that are doing their own hunting. Obviously, we know that Mr. Hoyt, we don't have a first name, by the way, but Hoyt literally hunts for an extended period of time on an African safari. So yes, a hunter. Wayne is consistently hunting
every
for
episode.
Clues. In Vietnam, he was hunting for people in the jungles out there.
Even Amelia, she's hunting in this episode as well. She's kind of the third detective, you can say.
She's been hunting for a
said
while.
that. Yeah, Pizzolatto even said it. She's the third investigator in this mystery. I love it.
And finally, Tom Purcell. This was the first time in this season that the point of view kind of shifted from our main characters to someone on the fringe, Tom Purcell, and kind of showed him on his own little hunt.
Trying to get down to the bottom of this and figure out what happened to his daughter. Yeah.
Right.
We start off with Wayne and Amelia in bed
first hookup.
after the shooting, and he has a cool line that he gives her, very, very smooth.
Hell of a day when a gunfight, the second most exciting thing happens to you.
Whew. That's a great line. And he's got a bunch of great lines in this episode, by the way, too. Mahershala Ali, what else can you say at this point?
Incredible performance. I mean, every single episode.
Every episode, and this episode, he has delivered some just gems.
Now, this conversation between them is pretty interesting, besides the fact that being their first hookup. Amelia's like inquiring about his past and wants to know more about what happened to him and what happened in Vietnam. And
your memory.
He keeps on saying about like he doesn't think much of it and doesn't try to remember those things, and he just kind of, pushes it to the side.
It's like a superpower to me. I can't even understand that. How do you do it?
Just lucky, I guess.
And it's so ironic because, in the later years of his life, in 2015, he wishes he could remember those things. He used to be able to forget them and not let it affect his day-to-day. But it's definitely not a superpower when he's in 2015 and he's trying to piece together what happened to his life.
Okay, let's go back to Tom now. In the last episode, we got that phone call who we think is Julie on the line, and now the police are trying to circle back around to Tom. They want to go back and pinch him a little bit more on this.
Which would be the obvious way to react when you get a phone call from Julie, from
saying that guy,
stop acting like my dad, who is this guy? You have to then be suspicious of his motives and what he was doing and kind of double check your stuff. The thing that I found interesting is that, he is completely betrayed, he feels.
Yeah, his look.
Especially between him and Roland.
Yeah, that look at Roland, it was just like, he was heartbroken.
Yeah, and you can see that I think this is the moment where he completely breaks. And we find out later in the episode of what happens, it was like a turning point in his life where he could no longer just sit there. He had to do something about it.
His one friend left in this world after what happened to his family.
Yeah.
Now he feels like he's just turned on him, so he's alone.
She is mine. That child is mine. How could you, after everything you think I could do something like that? Do you?
And I just want to give a shout out. I think this was probably the best performance of this episode. Scoot McNairy did an incredible job all season long with Tom, but when you're in that interrogation room and he is screaming and breaking down and the veins in his forehead, I mean, it was all like body and mental and emotional performance. It was incredible to watch.
It reminds me of Matthew Lillard's scene from Twin Peaks: The Return. His interrogation scene was so good and heartbreaking.
I've never seen anything like it. I've never read anything like it. You don't know. You weren't there.
another theme that we see going on throughout this whole season and through the 80s and 90s is, the higher ups in the police and the law enforcement trying to pin this on someone on the easiest target.
They can't
because of public pressure and
Yes.
everything going on.
They need to close this case as soon as possible.
Right. They don't want it just to drag out too long. And our Mr. Kent, the Attorney General in 1990, again, they're looking for the easiest explanation. They think Tom might have collaborated with Woodard to pull this off, and it's like there's no evidence that backs that up at all. But it's like, could these two have done it? Like, yeah, let's throw them in this mix.
Sure they could. It's clear that Hayes knows that something's up here. He knows
and he's not as gullible, or he doesn't want to, he's not looking for this easy out. He really wants to find the truth.
Yes.
And the difference between him and Roland is, Roland's willing to play the game a little bit in terms of going through the hoops that he has to do, the political
But he
hoops.
sees this as just another case.
Right.
With the rest of his cases, but when it comes to Wayne, this is his life. Now we learn a little bit more about Tom Purcell. The detectives go back, they check a few of his acquaintances, co-workers, and they find out a few more things about him. One, that he was drinking a lot on his job. They're just checking off lists, trying to see if they can find anything that can, pin him there. And also they found out that he was going to gay bars.
Yeah, and you have to remember around this time in Arkansas, it's not a very open society at all.
No.
Race, homosexuality, all sorts of things. You're an outsider and you cannot bring that up at all.
Nope.
We're uncovering parts about Tom's past that we didn't know about, but that doesn't mean that he had anything to do with this
It's another
case.
chance for the detectives to go, well, this might have had something. Now we have our smoking gun or anything that way. And they also find the church pamphlet as well on homosexuality. So it's, again, pointing towards this idea that maybe he had something to do with it, but it's unlikely at all.
Yeah, and even in that drive between Roland and Wayne, you can tell that Roland is very skeptical about the whole thing, about even tying Tom into it. It's clear that Tom was an extremely hurt and shattered individual, especially after, who knows how long he was living in the closet. But also on top of this, now he's lost his kids, having to go through this. And then on top of that, getting the finger pointed at you for doing this. I mean, that would
very
destroy
skeptical
someone.
of all of this. And I feel like also Roland probably knew some of this as well. And he's just telling him, this might not be the route here.
We know they were meeting somebody else out there. Tom wouldn't do that.
Hey, if he wouldn't, then we'll clear him. But we gotta get this right.
All right, Harris James. Let's talk about Harris James. You and I, we did not like this guy from the get-go. Remember last episode, it was revealed that he spotted the evidence at Woodard.
And he was like, oh, that's that kid's backpack.
How convenient.
Oh, cool.
And where does he work now?
Hoyt.
Yeah, he works at Hoyt Foods in security. And apparently he was, highway patrolman, but he also did some shifts at security at Hoyt.
He's there. Apparently we find out what. He says the exact line that I think, oh, that's Michael Clayton's job, basically. Yeah. He is the Michael Clayton of this company.
Exactly. So, I mean, extremely suspicious individual if he wasn't already before.
Yes.
Now to tie him into the whole Hoyt universe, he's someone to watch.
Yes.
100%.
Yes, and Nick Pizzolatto already says too that, listen, you got to focus in on Hoyt now. This is our biggest part of this case right now, is Hoyt Foods had a lot to do with this.
And as we mentioned earlier, in that scene, you can see another shot of him hunting in a framed photo. And also there was a really kind of random suggestion as well when he kind of hit on Wayne at the end of the whole conversation.
You look good, or in the suit.
You have a great body.
You have a great body.
You have a great body. And it was obviously maybe an innuendo that he was in the closet as well, and it's something that isn't spoken about, but that there are people that are kind of hiding their true selves in this society.
But I'll admit, now and then I miss whiling away my days cruising around eating donuts.
I don't eat donuts.
I can tell. You got a good body, detective.
Appreciate your time.
Now, speaking of Harris, Eliza in the next scene brings him up. She brings up that name again to Wayne, and he's like, I have no idea what you're talking about. I've never heard that name.
Yeah, there's this theory going around that I read on the internet of Wayne in 2015. He's playing up some of his sickness, that he's kind of using that in order
See
to
what she knows.
Yeah, to see what she knows, to see what Roland knows, to see what all these people know, and to see if he can kind of figure out who's on his side and who's against him. That he's maybe a little bit more with it than we think he is, or that he's led to believe.
I believe that.
Yeah, so do I, and I think that this is obviously him playing dumb, because I think something horrible happened that he was a part of that has to do with Harris James.
Like we said earlier about Amelia doing some detective work herself, she goes to this halfway house, I guess it's owned by the church or something. It's not a nunnery. We get a lot of clues here about what's going on here and how she might have gotten there in the first place. We know that they were helping girls take care of girls who were lost, but then some things happened with drugs. They were also apparently pimping girls out at some point. We still don't know what happened, how she got there, and what happened, how did she leave? How did she get out of this mess?
Right, if she was with the Hoyt thing, how did she get to here, and how was she saved?
Why would they keep her alive, too?
Yeah, exactly, yeah. So it's a theme that we've seen throughout True Detective Season 1 as well, about these people on the fringe of society, right? That are the women that are kind of taken advantage of by people in power. Some with a lot of money, men that are in a position that can take advantage of them. And they're kind of discarded by other people and kind of brought into these rings, these prostitution, pedophilia rings. And we get a little more insight into...
One of the girls brings it up to Amelia at the very end there. She's telling her
there's
something going on here.
Write a book about what happens to kids in this area, specifically women. I mean, that's Season 1 True Detective right there.
You want to write a book? Write about what happens to kids out here. What happens to girls.
So heavy themes of a wider conspiracy that goes far beyond just what we've seen so far, but also there were a couple shots that piqued our interest of someone doing the landscaping outside. We see this shot, there's two specific shots of someone out there, outside of this location, and if you look closely, on the side of the truck, it says Ardoin Landscaping. Ardoin is the last name, Mike Ardoin, who we saw earlier in this season.
Yeah, the camera,
the friend.
It holds on that shot.
Yeah. And we were both like, why are they holding on this shot? Why even show us this unless there's some reason?
And this makes sense because it's, again, going back to the case and the detectives, maybe things they missed, talking to parents possibly, these kids. They did talk to Mike. So at this point, with the last name in there too, makes you wonder if it's the family had something to do with this too. Maybe it had something to do with them.
Right, and it makes you kind of question about how deep the conspiracy goes. And if Mr. Hoyt, he controls not only, his own business and empire, but
the town,
he has his hands on a lot of other things, a lot of people, a lot of different companies, law enforcement, politicians, obviously. But yes, Mike Ardoin is the kid that knew about the dolls on Halloween night, the ghosts that were dressed up, handing them out.
Julie, she got one.
Now let's move on to Dan O'Brien. This was my favorite scene in the entire episode. Just the acting between all of them. It felt like something out of a Tarantino movie. It was so good. I just want to say that I can't believe they let him leave. I understand the whole thing that time's of the essence here, but the fact that he's trying to hustle them for money right now and
give me $7,000 and I'll give you the name. It's like, no, we need
how about you
now.
Come with us to the department and we'll figure this out.
I kind of do agree with you because the thing is, we've seen how aggressive these two have gotten with suspects in the past.
Of all guys, and he just told them.
He seems like scum that you want to.
He slept with his cousin. He told them all of this.
Yeah, that was a real that was horrible. I was surprised by them letting him go, but they don't really have much to work with right now, so they're gonna wait a little bit. And I thought it was telling just to see how he was reacting in the sense, he was very, very skittish and on his toes. Even when he said, people are looking for. If you're looking for Julie, people are looking to keep me silent.
The
people
conspiracy.
like me to silent. Yeah.
It's not even that he knows.
You
he
see
knows
someone.
What's going on.
There's one part in the diner when he looks up. He hears the door open,
and he
looks up like he thought it was someone to come get him. So you can tell that there's a reason why he's kind of so scared, or that proves that the conspiracy is so large.
Yeah.
There are many people trying to keep this quiet.
Now you procure my funds. We meet back here, say tomorrow, maybe the next day. You're gonna see the solution to your problems.
Now, the biggest mystery has been solved.
What was that?
The 2 wine glasses.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Eliza was sleeping with Henry. They're having an affair.
Yes.
Henry, I mean, what are you doing, man?
I love the scenes right before it. You have to think, oh, it's got to be Henry now. When he talks to Eliza the second time, he's like, oh, you can't do that. You knew. I was like, okay, so it's establishing a rapport between the two.
Totally. And the reason why I was talking about how sharp Wayne might be in 2015.
Back to his memory.
It comes back to his memory. Not only that, but like he deduced from what he saw how they're acting with each other. He could then brought it up to his son. So we shouldn't forget that like Wayne is also a world-class detective or military member. Like he knows what he's doing when it comes to kind of interacting with people and interrogating them on their own. So we shouldn't put it all off to his disease that he has, obviously, but like he might be just like, kind of like lying a little bit in order to make sure that he can kind of stay on top of people.
Yeah. Now let's fast forward to Dan and Tom. Tom gets info from the two detectives who were speaking a little too loud.
Yeah, I mean, horrible detective.
Yeah,
that's horrible.
So I'll go with that. So I figured that Tom probably knows a lot more about Dan, so he could find him from where he was. So I got that. Next up, we got one big clue. Actually not even, it's a confirmation at this point. It has to do with Hoyt.
Right.
Hoyt's the name that he was probably going to give these guys.
Can we just rewind a second? Because I loved Tom getting a little bit of revenge on Dan.
Give me the name!
Yeah, I feel like Dan had been picking on Tom maybe his entire like marriage.
Yeah.
And calling him like a pussy, calling him all these things. Like just like you could tell that Tom was not gonna let anything stop him at that moment.
He finally got back at him.
And finally got back to him and was like, tell me what you know, I'm gonna kill you, I'm gonna murder you right now. Tom had reached a point where he was willing to kill someone and go to prison forever in order to get this information.
I'm saying I know who's paying her. I said, man, I know who's paying her. And who would have a problem if she asked for more? That's all I was gonna give the cops, man. That's all I was gonna give the cops.
Next we see Wayne over at Shoepick Lane, the intersection that we've seen before. We didn't know exactly what that house was, but now we know it was the abandoned Purcell house.
Yes, it wasn't Woodard's house.
Yeah, it wasn't Woodard's house. It's a whole bunch of vandalism, graffiti, and it's completely abandoned. And there's a few things to point out here. One, there's a triangle with an eye in it, Illuminati right there.
Okay.
And then on the other side, there is a circle, a spiral, which we've seen in True Detective Season 1.
Yes.
That dealt with, it was imagery dealing with larger pedophilia rings throughout the region in Season 1. It kind of creates the imagery and the idea of that this being a much larger conspiracy, not just in this town of Arkansas, but also a panic that kind of spread across the U.S. during this time.
So we talked about this earlier, about that hole in the wall and how all the options of what it could be, and it looks like it was the fact that it was the kids. It was just the kids passing notes back and forth.
It wasn't as devious as a peephole.
No.
So then who, in fact, do you think they were talking about? Who were they worried about hearing their conversations?
Maybe their mom. Everything points back to it's got to be the mom who's involved with this. The way that Tom's going about everything, it seems like it's the mom.
And the fact that she worked for Hoyt.
Oh yeah, come on.
Now let's fast forward to the 90s and Amelia's book signing.
Yeah.
A major
a character shows
up.
We get the black man with the one eye, one white eye.
Now the interesting thing here is that he was kind of scolding Amelia for what she's doing, right? And it kind of echoed the sentiments that we've heard from Wayne in previous episodes this season. They share the same perspective. Now it's strange because if he was involved in the devious part of this whole case and the whole conspiracy, would he be reacting like this in a public forum? I don't think so.
No, and
it almost seems like he had a genuine relationship with the kids,
girl,
separate from what happened to them at Hoyt.
Apparently, he doesn't know what happened to her either after this.
Right.
So
he wants to know where she is now, where she is. If there's any information on where she is, stop making a book. Let's go find her. The way I took that was that he actually had a genuine friendship with these kids. As weird as that is for adults and kids, that's extremely weird. But I don't think that it's linked to actually Mr. Hoyt.
So you don't know nothing. You're just making your money and milking their pain.
Sir, the author has never claimed...
Shame on you, woman.
So at the end of the episode, it looks like Dan at least gave Tom some name. He gave him the name Hoyt.
Yep.
Now he just a drunken Tom Purcell decides to just walk up to the mansion, just jump over a fence, not worried about the cameras or anything. It's fine. He'll make his way around.
Now, the reasoning for all this, I believe, it was way too easy to get into that house.
Get him. This is a trap.
They're luring him
Bring
in.
him
There.
in.
They know that the possibility that he would be coming. Maybe they're tipped off by Dan. Maybe they're tipped off by someone else. But they know that Tom is coming, and this is working for them.
Yeah.
They want to cover up and make it look like these other players, Tom, Lucy, were involved in this whole thing, and that they're responsible. And
they're loving all of this.
And they're silenced.
Yeah. Harris watching on the little camera, just with a cigarette. Come on in.
Totally chill.
Yeah.
He's watching TV. He doesn't really care. He's waiting to lure him in, and then kill him, I think.
Is there any chance that Tom survives this? We see him alive in the next episode or something.
I sure hope so, but I do not think so. I mean, it's sad to see Scoot McNairy, his time come to an end. Maybe we'll go get some flashbacks from earlier timelines, but I think it's over. There's no way they're going to want to silence.
His final line is Julie.
Yeah.
His last line is Julie.
Exactly. And his expression on his face, and he's like, what is going on here?
Like he figured it out, but no one else is going to know. It's like when you find out, oh, Superman's Clark Kent, and then they usually kill that person off and they wipe their memory.
Yeah, it's not looking good for you, Tom.
Julie?
That'll do it for us, guys. Let us know any predictions or theories you might have in the comment section below.
And don't forget to hit that subscribe button, and we will see you all back here for episode 7 next week.